The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Got some good news, and I think we got some other good news coming. We're going to talk about that and some end-of-season awards and a lot more here on the Sooner or Later Sports Show. I'm your host, Jay. Thank y'all for pulling up here on the YouTube channel and listening wherever podcasts are downloaded and listened to. While you're here, please wipe your feet. Like, subscribe, rate, review, give us 5 stars. You think we deserve it? Go ahead and give us 5 anyway and gift it. So we're going to bring in the cavalry. We've got, of course, Coop in the house. We also brought Bryan Clinton back in. Coach is going to be coming in and talk to us about, we're going to talk about Zac Alley. We're going to talk about some portal wins and stuff, as well as some updates around a couple of visitors we have. I've seen some stuff. We're going to talk about that too. Then we'll wrap things up in the season awards. We'll give you your O MVP, D MVP. We'll go down into, we'll talk about special teams, transfer, all that jazz. We're going to wrap up the season as now it's officially over since the national championship is tomorrow. And we'll probably keep some national championship conversations too, if we find the time. So, gentlemen, happy Sunday. Bryan, let the people know where they can find you.
What's up, guys? I'm over at Heartland College Sports. I'm the managing editor over there, and then over at OUInsider, I've been a contributor there about 6 months now. Loving it over there too. So you guys can find me over there, and I'm on Twitter. I'm calling it Twitter. I'm not going to call it X. Clinton40 over there. So go check it out if you're looking for OU Insider content. We got all of it over there. So.
Yeah, exactly. Coop, let the people know. Say hi. Tell them how you doing today.
Mute.
Yep. Got it. He hit him with the dreaded mute button. Somebody had technical difficulties, and it wasn't just me.
It was epic. What I said was just epic. But no, I just got to say, what's up, Lloyd, Steven, T, Sooner Legends, a new member. So thank you so much for that, guys. Appreciate that. This is the time of the year to where the content is you can maximize what needs to really be minimized, or you could just report stuff as it happens. We go with the latter, but we're running on the waning hours of the transfer portal, and I'm very, very, very happy to probably get close to the end. Neo, I love you.
Good evening, all y'all, and I'm gonna keep it a buck. This is why I like the transfer portal, because it gives me stuff to talk about. Like, I can sit here and be here with y'all and complain about things nonstop and, have fun with that. But like when the season's over, like what else is there to really talk about? Like there's a lot of roster movement regardless, but the portal really gives us stuff to really, complain about. And I appreciate them for that. It gives us drama, a lot of that. And I actually got a video I've been working on. I actually got 2 videos I've been working on, but one I've been working on about the transfer portal and how we probably need to calm down a little bit. A lot of people don't understand just kind of how it works, but we'll get into that another time. But since we got Coach here, we definitely want to dive into, let's open it up with the 2 big wins that we had most recently. The number 1 win we have is Michael Tarquin, offensive lineman, coming in and committing from, he was played at Florida for 4 years, went to USC for a year, and now he's here. He's a former 4-star, consensus and composite 4-star, top 300 player in the country at the time while he was in high school. Oklahoma was in his top 3 when he was a recruit. And then we were like in the top 2 when he was a transfer. And everything full circle, third time's the charm. He landed here at Oklahoma. And so, Bryan, you did a video breaking down film, and I read, of course, some of the comments in there, and boy, people weren't the most excited. But at the same time, I get where they came from, while also understanding that there's a bigger picture here. So tell us what your thoughts on Tarquin coming here to Oklahoma. And of course, the best way that he, of course, commits is that he doesn't actually say a thing at all. He just shows up in the student database.
He's standing on business. Yeah, no, they. I like it. I really like what he brings to the table, because Oklahoma lacks experience right now along the offensive line, like in a bad way, and I think he brings a lot of that. The first thing I want to say to Sooner fans is, guys, there's not Creed Humphreys out there all over the place. Like you don't have ready-made second round picks, first round picks just walking out on the transfer portal. Right now, that's just not how it works. And if they are out there at this point in time, I think it's pretty safe to say they're asking for a bag. So, you've got to be careful about that stuff, and I've seen a lot of things where people say, well, is Oklahoma broke? No, I don't think that's what it is. I think you just have to understand that NIL stuff can creep into a locker room. You start handing big time money out to guys. The guys that are on the team already are going to be wondering, hey, where's mine? Like, why am I not? So it changes the dynamic with every guy that you bring in. So as for what Tarquin brings, guys, he's played tackle. He's played right tackle for the most part. He's got 4 years experience, as you said, at Florida and a year at USC. The game at USC where he gave up back-to-back, he gave up a sack and then a pressure against Arizona, who has good pass rushers. I mean, we saw that just about a week and a half ago. And I think that it was one of those instances where USC just kind of set him down. Now, they're doing P90X out there for strength and conditioning, so I wouldn't take it too seriously. What you saw from there, I do like where he was at more when he was at Florida. I saw some promising things from him on film there, and really, I think you have a portal gem here, I guess, if you want to call it that, for Bill Beanbo's purposes, because the issues that he has are technical. He's got technical issues. He doesn't have size issues. He doesn't have motor issues. He doesn't have work ethic issues. It's technical. And if he's willing to put in the work, I don't think there's a better developmental offensive lineman coach out there than Bill Bedenbaugh. I mean, the guy, there's a reason why NFL scouts talk about him and on a short list for guys that they want offensive linemen being developed by. It matters. And I think if they can get him to slow down on some things, let his feet do the work and keep himself balanced. He lost balance several times, loses his footing. I think really all that comes down to is being more in control, and Bedenbaugh does a good job of making sure his guys do just that. He moves well in space. I think he's your offensive. I think he's one of your two offensive guards. I do. I think he's more. Yeah, he's more built for that role. And 6'5", 300 pounds. He's probably gonna have to get a little heavier. I don't think that'll be a problem. But at the end of the day, it's somebody that you can really hang your hat on, be happy about, and it's another experienced guy in that room, which Oklahoma really needs right now.
And that was my thought when I looked at him. Like, we talked about this in the green room, kind of want to bring it up to the front table. When I looked at my comparison to him, I'm going to be honest, the guy that he makes me think about is McKay Matauer coming here from Cal, right? It feels like he can be a guy like that. You bring him in, he brings solid experience in. You only got him for a year, so you're really only using him as a Band-Aid anyway, so that you can really develop the other guys that need to go ahead and step up and take that role. Good thing is you got a Fabici, a Weiwu coming in, which he's young, freshman All-American. He's someone that can step in and play today. You got a slew of freshman linemen that honestly you may see one or two of them get some reps. You also have other guys on the roster from the last couple of recruiting classes that are really itching to get on the field too. The bigger thing is you just need additional experience, because we talked about this. I've talked about this literally every show, and I know y'all may be tired of hearing it, but those that haven't heard me say this, we had over 4,000 snaps from players that were freshmen, redshirt freshmen, and sophomore. So you've got all those young players coming in, well, all those young players playing. They're building that experience, but you don't want to keep doing that every year. At a certain point, you're going to need to have the junior type experience or senior type experience to help control the locker room when you're going up against the big dogs and they're going to be kicking your butt. But that was kind of my comparison with him. I don't think he's a bad player to have, especially since Bedenbaugh's been wanting to have him. And coach, you said the best thing possible. He went to USC and went to a strength and conditioning coach that we are seeing the problems of today, or we've seen in the last couple of years of how the line changed when he was in control. Now we're bringing him back to a guy like Schmitty, who built SEC lines, who knows how. I mean, he did that at A&M. He knows how to get these guys in the right shape to play. I don't have any concerns about him coming here, because I think that they can get him in the right mode. He'll get back to a Florida workout regime in comparison to like, the USC one, similar here at Oklahoma, and he'll be ready to play in the trenches. So I'm excited. Coop, when you saw Tarquin get that commitment, see him come through and just show up randomly in the student database, what jumped to your mind?
Third time's a charm. I mean, basically, that's kind of what you look at. Right now when it comes to offensive line, you gotta trust in Coach Beatonbaugh, because when he has time to work on these players, and the McCabe comparison is terrific, because last year we were talking about. And I mean, you can go to Gabe, who's pretty decent at the offensive line breakdown, but everybody was talking about just get out of here. Like, just, it wasn't great. It wasn't good. And then this year it's, at one point he's hurt and we're like, we need McCabe back on the line. And Bill Beatonbaugh is going to look for people that he can count on, people who are going to not make the mental mistakes. Again, I mean, if you clutch on to somebody and fall down because you got beat with bad feet, I mean, that's something you can handle. Now, granted, you're still going to get your butt torn up when you have a lapse physically, mentally, spiritually, alphabetically, from this fan base. So it's all the same. But with Fabici coming in, Simmons, what you're hearing about Eugene Brooks, the bruv from across the pond, Daniel, Akinkumi, he is the one. We're trying to get him on, trying to line it up now that he's here stateside. It'll be maybe a little bit easier. So Daniel, we want you, buddy. But one of the big things that I just want to do is just say, like, you got to trust Nabeed. I mean, because he went out to get bodies. I expect probably some more good news coming down the line, but what you need is bodies. And everybody, prep it. You need competitive depth on your offensive line, because we saw Dylan Gabriel get better when Jackson Arnold was behind him. You see offensive linemen get better when they got dudes behind them. If you don't feel like your job's in jeopardy, I mean, outside of just not getting yelled at, what is the reason to press yourself? So, I like some of these kids. The Tarquin kid, this is his opportunity. And you got to think that with a very, very cerebral guy like himself, you look at Beatonbaugh, you hear, I think that Neo said something about it with Andy Reid. I mean, NFL coaches will take an offensive lineman a round earlier if it's an OU offensive lineman, because you got that opportunity. So if you're freaking out, I understand. And you got to invest in the offensive line. Jackson Arnold's escapability is a little bit, going to give us a little bit of a cushion there. On top of that, he's going to get the ball out of his hands a little bit faster. Forget about the bowl game. He held on to the ball for way too long in several situations. So competitive depth is really the main reason why I'm excited to see him come in, and with the experience, because you don't want to roll into LSU at night with a kid who turned 19 a couple days before. It doesn't matter. I mean, you saw, and it helped me out with the name here, Prize left tackle at Alabama. Guy was going to all world everything, and he got his Caden. He got abused by Michigan. So it does not matter. 5-star offensive linemen, that they will have their ups and downs, but which can take us to the next one. But yeah, competitive depth. Here's my drink finally.
Yeah, no, and you're spot on with that. You just need additional players, and as Bryan mentioned earlier, that's kind of just key. You don't want to run in with a whole bunch of young players, while at the same time, just having a guy with snaps from the SEC, he can prepare those guys mentally. He can let them know, hey, this is kind of what's going to happen, right? These are some of the tactics. Mm-hmm. And it's not that he was in the SEC for a year. He's in the SEC for 4 years. So he knows how some of these schools play, how dirty some of them can be. Hey, watch out for them doing this. Watch out for them grabbing that. They'll lean on you this way, and that's going to hurt your hip, whatever. There's all kinds of stuff that can be thrown out there to truly get you going. So, okay. Next up, of course, we've got some visitors. Kind of want to chit chat about that. OU Mike, thank you for the $10. We appreciate the support. Definitely make sure you go over to Heartland College Sports. and show some love to Bryan and them over there, as well as OUInsider.
Yes, sir.
We really appreciate the support. Tanya, thank you for the virtual high five. Boom, right back at you on that. All right, we got Lance Hurd as well as Terrence Ferguson are the two that I know are in town. Now, I'm not sure if based upon what the mods I've been seeing, especially the Tennessee guys, they've been talking about it like crazy. Feels like Tennessee is dooming right now. Supposedly it's between us and them. The fans are not feeling very good right now because I know that Hurd was at Tennessee for like 6 hours and he bounced. So it could mean one or two things, in my personal opinion. Bryan, I'm going to throw this at you next and kind of give your thoughts. Is one, this is a bag situation. He went to Tennessee, see what the bag is. The bag didn't sound right for him, so he bounced out and was like, all right, I'm good. I'm going to go ahead and keep my flight and roll. Or two, he's looking for an opportunity to start immediately. And Tennessee needs someone. They actually need a starting left tackle right now. They're kind of struggling with that. But he didn't feel like it was the good situation for him. So, I mean, and then the third one is that he's looking for somebody to really develop him. Now, I know that he likes Beatonbow. I know that he was recruited by us in last time in some capacity, so we know him. I'm curious to kind of see where this goes, and we'll find out what probably sometime tomorrow, since the dead period starts tomorrow. Either he's going to commit or he's going to be looking to take other visits. I'm just hoping that he goes ahead and commit and enrolls next week when school starts. Bryan, talk to us. You're one of our insiders. What you hearing?
Sounds like visits have gone well, which, that's it's a good thing. But look, this is one of those situations. I don't want to get everybody's hopes up, so I want to be just real with you. Visits going well doesn't mean anything in the transfer portal era. I mean, he may really like what he hears, and somebody else comes calling and they drop something on him that he can't pass up, and that's where he ends up. But sounds like Oklahoma's doing what they need to be doing to try and land this guy with Hurd. Look, this is a situation where the Sooners understand what their needs are, and I think that this is one where you proverbially swing for the fences. And if Oklahoma really likes what Hurd brings into the room, I think they'll do that. Now, I will say this: he's a young guy, and that's you're not getting a lot of experience in this, and so, but you also, I think what puts Oklahoma in a situation to swing for the fences is that you just lost Caden Green. Now, it's not a 1-for-1. I think Caden Green. I mean, I really like what we've seen from Lance, but Caden Green was set to be one of the nastiest guards in the SEC next year, and he still will be, just not for the Sooners. So, I do think that there's definitely some juice there for Oklahoma. It does help that this is a guy that likes Bill Beatonbow. If you go in, you either like that guy or you don't. That's just how guys like Bill Beatonbow are taken. And I think that he is somebody that fits that room well. So I think it's down to it sounds like it's down to Oklahoma, Tennessee, but you never know. Like I said, Oregon could come knocking and just throw everything off. And there's no basis to that, but you get the sentiment, what I'm saying. It's just how things work. But right now it looks like Oklahoma's at least in a decent spot.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm hearing too. Terrence Ferguson, the former Alabama lineman, we'll add him in there too. He's supposedly here hanging out. He had some good snaps there at Bama. I think he only has like 2 years left of eligibility, where Hurd has 3 or 4. But I think the big thing with Hurd is to remember, and it's the thing to consider when it comes to some of these transfer portal guys, is that if you're bringing in some of the older graduate transfers, they're great for 1-year rentals. It doesn't really mess up continuity in the room.
Right.
If you bring young dudes in, you might piss off one of your prize recruits. That's the ones you got to think about. And as Bryan mentioned, and Jaron Canick, somebody actually mentioned this on Twitter, on the Twitter video, that Canick mentioned it in one of their podcasts on the prairies, that if you want to get paid, go to the portal. But the issue with that is that all the players know that. So if you come in, they know that you probably got paid to get here, and now they're going to be asking the questions of where my money at, and then you start losing your own. So that's probably one big reason why you'd recognize with the way that, Venables and them is doing the team building. They're focusing on guys that they want to bring here that actually wants to play ball and really focus on development. Money's going to be there. We'll figure out how to make some great stuff work, but we're not here to outpay Oregon or the likes of, Texas A&M. But we'll be competitive in the price. That's what you got to recognize. And so with some of these people, and Neo, I disagree on the poison of NIL, is because some of these players also recognize they ain't making it to the NFL. So they're making any money at this level now. That way they can try to figure out what's next in their career. Because the ones that are going to make the NFL, they're starting on offensive lines around the country today, or defensive line, or whatever positions today, and they're not leaving their school. The guys that are in the portal are ones that probably aren't going to play anyway at some places. Now, one thing I'm going to add, and Coop, I'm going to pass to you, is when it comes to the portal and players like a Terrence Ferguson and a Lance Hurd, yes, I am basically telling you that the transfer portal is retail prices besides wholesale prices. Wholesale, you go to Sam's, you go to Costco or whatever, and the prices, if you get it in bulk, or a lot of times you can get it much cheaper in wholesale because you're getting it is either in bulk or you're getting a special price because they've got a bunch of them and they're giving it to you. That's your high school. Your high school players are more your wholesale pricing. Retail pricing is after it's been sold off, somebody else has tried it, and they're like, all right, I'm going to go ahead and see if I can make more money. And that's when you get those retail prices from these. Now, every once in a while, you find a clearance player. For example, Tyler Guyton is probably one of the best clearance players we've ever found because he's one of the greatest projects I think I've ever seen at Oklahoma. I can't think of anybody better. Dude was a defensive tackle, played H-back at TCU, and when I saw him as a freak, I'm like, I wonder what Beatonbow can do with him. Brought this dude here, and dude's a consensus first-round draft pick, guaranteed. Everybody said he's going in the first round. Think about it that way. Don't think about it the other ways you've heard. Think about it that way. We're finding some players on the retail side, trying to get that nice little deal we can get, maybe a clearance player here or one on sale, someone that we can peek up and say, probably one of the best picks you've seen in a while. Guytons don't come, they don't grow on trees. They're very hard to find, especially guys that want to work hard to do it. But luckily, we're going after guys that already have the size. We can teach them the technique. Coop, what are you hearing or thoughts on Hurd and Ferguson coming in? What do you feel like they could even fit if we were able to close the deal?
So with Hurd, I'll start with him. Pardon the Terrence Ferguson mental block that we got. If you're a Thunder fan, we had a Terrence Ferguson on, and it wasn't very good. So, but this Terrence Ferguson, another body. But Lance Hurd, he's still in town. And so he didn't blow in and blow out. Last thing I heard is he is sticking around for the night, and there should be some decent indications. Now, transfer portal, insider information, guys looking to be the one that was right. I don't give a damn. Let's just get some bodies, and let's get some dudes who want to go pancake some folks. That's what we want. And again, when I'm going back to, I stand very, very strongly on what I said when the Peyton Bowen situation happened, the first okie doke where he pulls out Oregon. And I say, if that's what that person is about, we don't want him in the locker room. If it's 100% money first, we don't want him in the locker room. That doesn't mesh with we need high character guys who are leaders and they're high school leaders at the previous team that they were on. Those are the guys that Brent Venables is going after. When you're building the culture that we're trying to build, that is who that is, because you can, and you've seen it with, and I'll point out LSU. LSU just rises from the ashes every 8 to 10 years and then turns into a cluster for the rest of the time. And I don't want this program to look like that. I don't want this program to be, picking between Ed Orgeron and Brian Kelly. Those are things that I don't want. And so I think that part of Herd coming in and the coaching staff is interviewing him just as much as he's interviewing them. And that is because, do you fit in what we're trying to do here? We will help you get your money. But, if I'm beating ball, I'm just going, a lot of my offensive linemen are not doing anything today, but it's not because they didn't get drafted. It's because they're resting for the playoffs. So let's just hang out. And but you've got an absolute, opportunity to bring in a young guy who could potentially turn into something. And I agree with what you said about Guyton, Jay, is he didn't play first year. And it was all like, hey, this guy could turn into absolutely something. Well, I promise you, for every one of those guys that could turn into absolute something, there's somebody who doesn't turn into anything. And so that's what I'm hearing on Herd. I haven't heard anything about Ferguson, super positive or the opposite. So, but we're trying to get those numbers. And as you see guys like Aaron Parks head out to the transfer portal, it's because they're making room for guys for another shot. If you get another Aaron Parks as a depth piece, that's fine. But we do need difference makers, and we do need people who are going to really, really, really press right now.
Yeah, and that's one thing to think about when it comes to how attrition works especially when it comes to the transfer portal. A lot of these cases, man, I feel bad for players because a lot of the fans think that they don't want to compete. They call them names, talk bad about them or whatnot. And it's like, no, it's not that they didn't want to compete. It's probably coach told them, you probably ain't gonna play here, right? We got some dudes coming in, and I got one that I'm a lot higher on, so maybe a good idea for you to go, explore the options. Unless you're cool with being a backup, explore the options because you may fall another spot in the portal in the depth chart. Because I got another guy coming in, so. Enough on that. We'll see what happened with Herd and Ferguson. We'll probably hear something, like I said, in the next 24 hours. If you don't hear anything next 24 hours, then obviously that means that he's going to continue to shop around. We'll just cross our fingers and toes that we're able to land. If we can land both, of course, I'm going to lose my mind. But if we can at least land one of them, I'd be satisfied. So, all right. Now we got to go into this. Rumor has it, we got a new defensive coordinator. So, before I do that, please, thank y'all for pulling up. Please hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. If you're listening on the audio version, rate, review. Give us 5 stars and all of that jazz. Go check out Heartland College Sports. Check out what Bryan's doing over there. Also, check him out on OUInsider. He does a lot of film breakdown, which is awesome. I always check it out. It makes me a lot smarter when I have these conversations. So, we got potentially new defensive coordinator. Ted Roof's gone. And it's fascinating to me about how this went down because I had an idea that this was possibly going to happen, right? It felt like BV needed him to kind of get the transition going into the SEC. And then from there, it's Ted, you want to stick around? We would love to have you as an analyst. Getting old, and we need somebody to really get out there and recruit. And it's nothing against you, but you've got so much knowledge. We would love to have you around for that. Well, it sounds like Roof's like, nah, I got to stick some coaching in me. I still got one more in me. He's definitely the Vince Carter meme right now because he's got one more in him. And he decided he wanted to be an analyst, and so he bounced out. And now the rumors are, and we're waiting for an official announcement, which I anticipate to happen on Monday since it's been just blowing up like this, is that Zac Alley, the defensive coordinator at Jacksonville State, will be our new DC/linebacker coach. I know a lot of y'all was in my comments and my mentions and stuff talking a little reckless. And this is the reason why I needed Bryan on here, because I know that as coach can break it down a lot better, and we're going to piggyback off of his lead on this, why this makes sense, why this is a really good hire. Coach Clinton, the field is yours. Talk to us about Zac Alley. I know you've done film breakdown. You've looked at him overall. Talk to us.
So I think it's really important to understand that Ted Roof, the one thing that you heard out of Coach Venable's mouth about Ted Roof several times, teacher. He's a great teacher. He's an excellent instructor. He's a great teacher. That is exactly why he was brought in. He was able to take guys that have had years of another system that they've been dealing with and teach them the foundations and the structure of what Brent Venables needed them to understand for them to move forward. Now, I think that Ted Roof is I do think that he brings value to this coaching staff, but I think what you're getting in Zac Alley is, for lack of a better term, he's Brent Venables at 30 years old. He is. Like, it's uncanny. If you have seen, I shared something from the ref earlier this week. The guy's mannerisms, the way he goes about things, the way he coaches, the way he carries himself, the way he talks. I mean, hell, his voice even kind of sounds like Brent Venables a little bit. There's a lot of Brent Venables in this guy, and I don't think that's not a coincidence. This is a guy that spent 7 years under BV as a grad assistant, and his defenses. I've got stats written down right here. His defense at Jacksonville State. This was their first year in the FBS, mind you. This was Jacksonville State's first year in the FBS. They jumped into Conference USA. They were 9-4. They won their very first bowl trip, New Orleans Bowl. They led Conference USA in total defense. They were 42nd nationally, 352 yards a game. Scoring defense, they led Conference USA, 21.2 points per game. Rush defense, they were 14th nationally and led Conference USA, 111.5 yards per game. Sacks, they had 39. That was 14th nationally. Turnovers gained, 25. That was tied for 8th nationally. Third down defense, they allowed conversions on 32.5%. That was tied for 20th. This guy runs his defenses like Brent Venables does. It's very similar because it's the same defense, guys. He coached for several years under BV. And something I need to address just right off the cuff. No, he didn't coach at Alabama last year. No, he didn't come from Ohio State. This isn't, but you have to understand, coaching trees don't work that way. That's not how this works. He spent all those years under nobody here is gonna argue with me that Brent Venables is one of, if not the best defensive mind, most consistent defensive mind that college football has seen over the last 20 years. I mean, that's a given. This guy spent almost half of that time working under BV and learning how to coach. He didn't have 5 years under somebody else and then come in and try and pick up a whole new system. He learned how to be a coach under Brent Venables. This is the right hire. This is the best. And I think, there were some rumors or reports that maybe Ted Roof was going to stick around a little longer than anticipated. The contract was set to be up, and it all came out and all happened so fast. I think, knowing that a guy like Zac Alley was available, and this is somebody that BV could go and get now and carry this transition into the SEC, I think it was perfect timing for Oklahoma, and I think that's why it happened. The guy, he exudes confidence. He is somebody that is very sure of who he is as a coach, and for a guy to be 29, 30 years old and do that, and to become the coordinator at Oklahoma. Who was the last defensive coordinator at Oklahoma that was 29 when he took the job? Oh, that's right. It was Brent Venables whenever Bob Stoops brought him in. So, I mean, guys, this is great. This is a great move for the Sooners. I'm ecstatic about it. And something that needs to be said, or something that's really great about this, probably the best thing, with how he thinks, with how he analyzes the game, being so similar to Brent Venables, this is going to open up. He's an extension of the head coach. This is going to open up Brent to focus on other things during game planning, during game time situations that maybe he felt he needed to be more hands-on with the previous regime. So I think having somebody that is that similar minded, that has really molded himself after Brent, it's really going to pay off whenever it comes time for Brent Venables to do more things as the head coach. I think this is great. I think this is great for the Sooners.
See, and you made a good point there with Venables wanting to step back. And so year one, of course, things were pretty atrocious, on the defense, and everyone was immediately saying, why is Ted Roof calling these plays? Year two, it appears that Venables had a lot more hands-on with the defense as the defense dramatically changed over the last year. Like, in some aspects we didn't, but there was a lot of the advanced metrics and stuff, third downs, our stuff rate, our rankings, just at advanced metrics. We were in the top 40 in a lot of metrics that we didn't expect to happen. I anticipated us to be in the top 40s and 30s, and we ended up being in that area. Stutzman getting hurt really showed how young our linebackers were. That's honestly, I think that's why we, outside of the offense itself and what was going on in the Kansas and Oklahoma State games, I think not having Stutzman is the reason why we lost those games, right? Having your general at the linebacker position, who is the quarterback on defense, that makes a big difference. And so, yeah, this guy now gives Venables that ability. I remember reading an article not too long ago after the rumors are going around he's going to be hired, is that Venables still plans on having some hands-on with it, but it would make sense. He's 29 years old, right? He's going to have them in there. He's going to install them. They're going to work together. He's probably going to oversee, but only, jump in when needed. The good thing is Seth Luttrell is a former head coach, and he was decent at best when it came to game management there at North Texas. And so he's learned a lot of lessons from that, to where he's going to get better about that, right? He's grown from that, and he's also wanted to be an offense coordinator. Just running the offense is going to be a hell of a lot easier for Luttrell than it would be running everything at North Texas. He can let Venables run that. And so I say within the next year or two, it'll be all Alley, just Venables. And I point that out for this one reason. Go look at some of the other good defensive coordinators out there, the ones that have done some special stuff over the last few years. You can look back and see when they started their jobs. Kirby Smart was in his late 20s, early 30s when he got the defensive coordinator position at Alabama. He was understudying with Nick Saban. He was with Saban for 9 years before he went to his alma mater. He could have probably left a little bit earlier. They probably would have gotten rid of Mark Richt, for him a little bit earlier, but he took his time. And when the opportunity came, he took the job, and boom, 2 national championships, right? Dan Lanning, when he took the job there at Georgia, he came from Memphis, right? He was a grad assistant at Alabama, and that's when Kirby Smart learned about him. But for the most part, Kirby Smart had his hand heavily in that defense, but Lanning was still growing, and then Lanning started doing some special stuff. And heck, now you see what he's doing at Oregon. Point is, a lot of these guys do come from smaller ranks. Another young 29-year-old young Thundercat that we brought in, this may be a sore spot for some of y'all. We brought in Lincoln Riley. He was late 20s. Looked freaking fantastic as a offensive coordinator. I do say so myself. Then of course, he became head coach. He's bounced, beard, mustache, bull. Anyway, my point is, don't look at him just because he's young and have too many questions and say, does Venables know what he's doing? He does. He has a plan, and the good thing is the transition for him is getting out of having to oversee everything and focus on the game itself. Coop, Zac Alley, I know you looked into him. You're pretty meticulous like me. Talk to me. What's your feeling on that?
Well, I can't remember which one of you two said I think it was BC. He doesn't come from Alabama, and he doesn't come from Ohio State. Well, Mike Stoops was on the staff at Alabama, and Alex Grinch came from Ohio State. So who gives a damn where the dude came from? Because if he's came in from somewhere else, that means they ain't wanting him anymore. So let's go with this. He goes to ULM. Stats get better. Hold on. Nope, just checking on it. So you want a defensive coordinator stats to get better once he arrives. Okay, just making sure. So did his stats get better? Did he take Jacksonville State from, looking like us, and then now they looking good? They're looking good. So it's this, right? It's this. Multiple hats. Brent Venables rocking multiple hats. He's doing all these different things. If only he had somebody who coaches defense exactly like he does, isn't 65 and applying for AARP, and can get out and recruit. Wait a second. What about that cat that was learning underneath me for a little while? Yeah. So this is a guy who Brent Venables sees as a great option. Going after, you guys like that, right? You guys like that?
Good. That was good.
So you go after somebody who is young, because Ted Roof wasn't winning a ton on the recruiting front. Now, I'm not saying Ted Roof was, dead weight, because I mean, I know that there's a specific 25 linebacker who wasn't exactly excited that Roof is bouncing. So I can say that he was doing a decent job, but let's just be honest. When you've got younger people who have this proven track record of success, they can go in there and they can sit. Zach can come in there. It's ZAC, Zach. So make sure that when you're slandering the dude who hasn't done anything yet, you
spell the name right.
Spell his name correctly. Yeah. So it's funny. It's like just us as fans, right? Because we can get wrapped up around somebody who hasn't done anything yet if we feel good about that thing, and you'd be like, to the Heisman, to the national championship, we're going to Mars. And then also, same thing is, you got another guy who nobody knows anything about, and they're like, this guy's going to be crap, because you want a big splash. Everybody wanted Jim Leonard. Jim Leonard ain't coming here. It's a completely different style. Brent Venables still wants his defense, right? So,
fair.
You look like you're about to say something, Bryan.
Yeah, well, I think something that people get lost on, that's two big time thought processes, two big time philosophies bouncing off of each other. People don't understand. You need somebody that is similarly aligned with you cerebrally. You need somebody that knows the ins and outs of what you're doing. When somebody says Jim Leonard, throw in whoever that coordinator is that you want. Zach Arnett was another one. I think Zach Arnett's a little closer to what BV would, but still, those things don't work. You need your coaching staff needs to be cohesive. Just because the guy's name is big doesn't make him the right hire. That's not how this works. So I just wanted to add that.
No,
real quick. Go ahead.
Yeah, go for it, Jay. Joe, go for
I was going to say, just to piggyback on that real quick, to recognize that a lot of your big name coaches ain't leaving for other coordinating positions when they have the opportunity of getting a head coaching job. Right. Like that's the hard part about trying to find perfect example. Lebby, there was legitimate conversations for Lebby with Georgia and Alabama. They tried to pull him. But the biggest problem for Lebby leaving is that he leaves the CEO position here at offensive coordinator. Because like literally he ran the offense. That's why everybody complains about him. They ain't going to just leave for a quote unquote lateral move, because unless the money's going to go up like significantly. You saw the Missouri coach bounce back to LSU. He has history with Brian Kelly. So, he's going to do that, even though he's got fired by Brian Kelly before, but I digress. He went for the bigger bump in money and probably more control over that side of the ball, because Kelly's, I think, more of an offensive guy anyway. That's sure, but for the most part, unless you're really giving up something, those dudes don't want... They're going to go for head coaching jobs. Fran Brown didn't even take a coordinator position nowhere. He went straight to Syracuse and took a head coaching job. Keep that in mind, too, when it comes to certain people. So, young and upcoming makes the most sense. Coop, back to you.
And I'll wrap it with this. What happened the last time that we had two people with not exactly aligned defensive mentalities on our team? We kept a brother and we bounced our future head coach. Guys, I am saying this right now. This is a great hire. This is an absolute, and Skalski is still on staff, unless something else has happened that I don't know about. But he has been, Brent Venables has brought in. Now he's got year 3. You've got returning senior leadership. That's going to make, because I think this hire looks a little different if Woody, Billy, and Danny aren't coming back.
Yeah.
And DeJohn Terry and everything. Because that could have played a huge part in this, in the fact that, like, he doesn't have to go to Danny and be like, all right, I know I got to start with you, Danny. You're the leader of the defense, but this is what I'm thinking. And Danny would be like, damn, I've just been 2.5 years trying to get into that level of thinking, and now you're thinking this. Like, so he can just walk up and say, hey, listen, this is what I'm thinking. They can chop it up. And since the dude's 30, I mean, what hell, he's only 8 or 9 years older than most of these guys. And so he can relate with them too. And so this is a great hire. I'll stand on that one, and I'll record my own simple video if it ends up being elsewise. But I'm very, very excited about this.
Sooner Cowboy, this is a great point. Stability. Stability has been key about what Oklahoma has done over the last 24 years of being here. Stability. And sometimes stability to a fault, right? Someone pointed out in one of the videos that I put out, and they pointed out how Oklahoma had a tendency of sometimes keeping some coaches for too long. And that makes sense. Sometimes you got to get those birds out the nest when they should. Now, this is something I want to point out as well when it comes to that stability. That's the reason why I put up Sooner Cowboys statement is, as Coop mentioned, Jim Leonhard was one name that everybody was throwing out there, right? Leonhard passed on the USC job because he wanted to bring in his own staff. That means that Lincoln Riley had to fire everybody. Riley wasn't going to let that happen, right? A lot of head coaches don't do that unless they really feel like they need to change everything. They probably should have done that, but I digress. In some situations, you got to go ahead and clean house. But he didn't want to do that. He didn't want to do that to the people he brought with him to USC, especially the ones from Oklahoma. So Leonhard wasn't going to be able to come. Leonhard was probably going to do the same thing coming here of, hey, I would like to bring in my own people and do my own thing and let me really run this like a CEO or whatnot. But Venables is a defensive guy. There's one thing he can't do is let go of defense. He's going to have his hand in there. He may just have a finger on the pulse. But he's got to have some sort of his body part around defense. The best part with Alley is he knows Chavis. He knows Bates from all the time there at Clemson. So he knows both of them. Mm-hmm. Read somewhere that he talked with Brandon Hall on a regular basis. So you've got a guy that has a relationship with the defensive staff already. You're not bringing somebody in who's got to figure it out. Nope. Mm-hmm. He has a relationship. That to me is so underrated as to what Venables made that choice on by bringing in a guy that is already have a relationship. And I bet you he had the conversation with the defensive guy and said, hey, look, what do you think about Zac Alley? You think he's ready? They're probably like, oh, yeah, bring him. We'll make sure he's ready. And having that backing from everybody on staff, it's going to be a huge deal for him. So, Steven, for your question here, I'm not sure if you've been under a rock, is Zac Alley, the former defensive coordinator at Jacksonville State. He worked with Brent Venables at Clemson for like 7 years as a grad assistant and as an analyst for Venables specifically there at Clemson. So he literally is like diet Brent Venables at the moment. We say diet for now, maybe even Coke Zero version, which has same great taste, but 0 calories because he's 29 years old in comparison to Venables being, in his 50s. But we've got ourselves a young stud that I think will usher us properly into the SEC. So, Bryan, you got any closing thoughts you want to throw into there before we move on to the next one?
Yeah, there was something that I believe it was Coop that said it, but had my wheels turning a little bit. The way that things are trending with Brent Venables' defense going into the SEC, I think it's worth pointing out that things are right on schedule. And what I mean by that is if you go back to Venables' first tenure at Oklahoma, if you go back to his tenure at Clemson, year 1 was bad. Year 2 was pretty good. Year 3 became elite. And I think even though Oklahoma is heading into the SEC, it's definitely worth pointing out if there's one thing that the Big 12 does well, it's offense. Offensive coaches in the Big 12, offensive schemes in the Big 12 are tough. They just are. So I think that given the situation and the uniqueness, there's probably still going to be some worry about that. But the reason why those teams become good. Brent Venables has been so successful at keeping draft eligible players for a year longer than maybe some other coaches would have been able to do. He's done that throughout his. I don't remember the Clemson defensive lineman. Was it Dexter
Yeah, they were.
Lawrence? There were several guys on that team that stayed for another year, and it's been so long since Oklahoma has had. I mean, guys, really? I mean, you lose Rondell Bothroyd and Isaiah Coe on the defensive line as starters. There's more guys in there, but as starters, you lose those two. An argument could be made that you throw Deshaun Terry in there and he kind of offsets Coe as a starter. You're bringing back 9 technical starters up to 11, really, if you look at it that way. You're gonna have one of the most experienced defenses in the country. When's the last time you could say that about Oklahoma? Those are the things that I think people lose sight of, is those off seasons that you stack in the same system. We've got Ethan Downs, Billy Bowman, Woody Washington, and Danny Stutzman. All 4 of those guys have played 2 years under Brent Venables. They were here before Brent Venables got here, and they're heading into their final seasons as we all expect, but they're all playing together still. And I think that year, that extra offseason, it's really, really good for the Sooners. So, be cautious, be whatever you are. Oklahoma fans, I think, have been hurt more than anybody over the years in college football, just with how close they've been to greatness. But I do think you can at least look at the trajectory of where Oklahoma is headed, and I think the defense has a really good chance of being one of the best in the SEC. And I don't say that lightly. I mean, experience is everything. They've got the dudes, and they've got Brent Venables, and Brent Venables at 30 years old now. So,
yeah.
No, and that leads perfectly into one thought that I had about this team. Like, if there's a concern about Oklahoma, I'm going to be 100% honest, transparent as a fan, as someone that pays attention, tries to analyze things and try to pretend to be smart. I'm going to give you guys one thing. 2027 is the year that I'm nervous about Oklahoma. And I say that because, again, 4,000 snaps by freshman, redshirt freshman, and sophomore this past season. Number 1 among ranked teams in college football. That's a lot of young players playing. Those guys will get about 3 years together. And as Bryan mentioned, BC said it perfectly. Brent Venables is infamous for getting guys to come back on the defensive side a year longer than they probably should. Kind of like Florida State did. I mean, Florida State was there, they were able to go 13-0. Unfortunately for them, if Jared Verse got hurt instead of, Jordan Travis, they probably make the playoffs. But they got Jared Verse, who was a top 10 pick that year, to come back one more year. And Venables is known for doing that same thing. We're probably going to have a lot of upperclassmen stick around, plus this 24 class, which I think is our best defensive line class we've had since the McCoy era. And you're going to have all of them all the way through 2026. By 2026, most of them dudes are going to be chunking the deuces, right? Because you're going to have a lot of dudes going to be eligible to get drafted, and they're going to probably go early. They may go early because they'll be that good potentially. So down the line over these next 3 years, 24 is going to be fun. 25 is going to be wow. 26 is going to be okay. I think 25 will probably be our best defensive team under Venables. Period. I think it'll be hands down the best one. You'll still have the young dudes playing, and you'll still have like the last years of those linebackers that really stand out. We'll just have to see what the classes look like that they're stacking up and what portal guys they can bring in to add to the mix. But I really think that going into 25 is going to be done. So next season, because we're bringing in technically 9 out of the 11 starters on the defensive side of the ball, even more helps what Alley's trying to do with him hiring Alley and what Venables is trying to do with bringing in a young DC. He doesn't have to really teach too many guys too much. The linebackers have been in this system for 2 years, and they're now starting. They're going to grow. Kanik should have that big Stutzman jump this year. This is the year where he'll recognize they're baiting me. Stop being fast to mistakes, right? Going full sprint to it. We're going to get better because of that. So, all right. Thank y'all for pulling up. Hit the like button. New to the channel, subscribe, rate, review if you're listening to the audio version. Appreciating BC pulling up. All right, let's talk about the past season, and we'll go from there, talk a little natty, and we'll wrap things up. I want to give some awards out, right? I sent everybody this list of awards I wanted to give out, right? We want to talk about the MVPs we feel like in performance. And y'all, I want y'all to hop in the comments and tell us who y'all think as well. We did this in the Discord, but we want to put these out in the streets too. Offensive MVP. I'm going to give y'all mine, pass it to the panel. You can give your comments about it afterwards. My offensive MVP is going to go to Dylan Gabriel. He showed up, showed out. He really did lead the offense, man. When he was allowed to play like an Heisman candidate, he looked like a Heisman candidate all season. The only time he didn't like a Heisman candidate is when the cuffs were thrown on him in a game. But he looked good. He actually, and I think it was it was you, Coop, who mentioned it. He has a backup behind him, so he looks like he played with confidence. Actually, BC, you mentioned that. He had a backup behind him, so he played with more confidence because you could kind of let loose. You know, he runs the ball and trucks somebody like he did at Iowa State for the touchdown. I mean, he's trucking dudes, running into dudes against Texas, trying to run in and get touchdown. He played with so much aggression that I just wish that he would have been unleashed in that Kansas game and we would have had a completely different outlook. But MVP for me goes to DG. BC, who you have as your MVP?
Yeah, I had DG as well. The guy, he damn near cleared 50 touchdowns.
Oh yeah.
He was good. He played really, really well. And the 12 rushing touchdowns, I think having Jackson Arnold behind him, it kind of gave the staff a little more confidence to cut him loose, and he played well. And he played with a chip on his shoulder this year. He was really good, and he was clean. I believe his QBR finished top 4 in the country. The guy was solid. What's crazy about this, and this is just the perception of how college football is and how important perception is in this game, because it's become pretty political. But if he wins one of those 2 games, he's probably a Heisman finalist. He was right there. I don't think he wins it, honestly, and that's another conversation. Before we leave, we need to bring something up about the Heisman. But I think he was every bit as good as Oklahoma fans could have hoped. And the big thing is, he's going to go down as a guy that probably doesn't get as many flowers as he deserves for what he did while he was here, just because he was the quarterback on the team when it went 6-7. But he did set the trajectory back for Oklahoma quarterbacks, set them back up to head in the right direction. So DG was my guy too for offensive MVP.
Coop.
Because you guys both went in the DG, I'm going to actually make a full-on blown-out case for Drake Stoops.
Love it.
I won't argue.
I will think this. You put anybody else in the country, in the history of Oklahoma football, in the slot receiver position this year, they do not match what Drake did. I'm taking any other slot receiver in the country, any slot receiver in the history of Oklahoma football. And here's why. I think Drake Stoops saved so many bad passes, so many tipped balls. He blocked his backside off. I promise you that if you put in, and I'm going to pick out somebody like you slide instead of Drake, put Lee Morris, who all he did was catch touchdowns, right? You put him there. I don't think he makes some of the shoestring catches. I don't think he holds onto the ball some of the times that Drake Stoops has got CTE after this year alone. That dude got hit so hard so often, and he put his life. I kid you not. We need a statue of Drake Stoops or some kind of acknowledgement of Drake Stoops on campus, because I think he single-handedly. Let's give him the 1,000 yards, and was it 12 touchdowns? It was up there.
10.
Okay, so double-digit touchdowns, but the number of passes that he caught that you give a very, very, very small. I mean, this is an Oracle, an AI, an Amazon AI, or whatever commercial where they do the like 2% chance to catch the ball. Like he caught so many things he didn't have any business catching, and I think that it saved so many drives. It saved us from so many bad situations. I think without him, we probably lose at least one more game without Drake Stoops this year.
Yeah, you made a good point about that. I mean, he led the Big 12. He was second in receptions. He was leading in touchdowns up until the bowl game. He finished the season second in touchdowns at 10, and he finished number 5 in yards in conference. Like, there's a good argument for him on offense MVP. So I wouldn't fight you on that one. All right, defensive MVP. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go a little off the wire. When we did it in my Discord, I was running with studs, but to be honest, giving it to Bowman, dude. 3 interceptions returned for a touchdown. He finished with 5 on the season. He was everywhere, and he was a missile in those hits. That hit on Sanders, man, made Sanders go ahead. I'm declared for the draft. He's like, wait, Billy's coming back? Oh no, I'm out. And the funny thing is, they know each other. If I'm correct, they went to high school together, they went to rival high schools. Yeah. So he's like, nah, that dude gonna target me again. I'm good. I'm out. So Billy Bowman forced a Texas tight end to hit the draft. I got to give it to him as my defensive MVP. Coop, I'll pass it to you this time, and then BC, I'll let you finish.
All right, I'm gonna homage to Gabe Eichert here. I was gonna go with Isaiah Coe. Because Isaiah Coe, and I've used his name in a manner like he ends the season in the bowl game with his best game that he's had as a Sooner. He was the most consistent defensive lineman that we had this year. I use Isaiah. I'm going to text him. I'm going to video myself apologizing him and then send it to him. But we used him as the name that you toss right next to JAG, just a guy. And this year he maximized his. He maximized his talent, his ability to learn this system. And so I think it's there. But I got to give it to Stutzman. You made a comment earlier. I mean, we lose 2 games. I think we effed around at a level 6 and found out a level 8. On offense, and that's why we lost those 2 games, but it's no coincidence that Danny wasn't there. Because I think even though he was on the sideline, I think that there's just something, it's like it's hard for you to half-ass something when Danny comes off the field and looks you in the eye. Like, you can't do it. And so, unless you're his roommate. But I fully want to say Danny Stutzman, I mean, at one point, I was going to not make an OU claim like some of our fans have done, like if we beat Texas all XYZ. But like I would have said, if he doesn't win the butt kiss, I'll pay $500 to the first person who DMs me. I thought he was a shoe-in for the butt kiss, and he was just phenomenal. So I got to go with Danny.
I like that. BC.
I promise I'm not just copying you, man. Billy Bowman's who I had too. And I think that the play that kind of encapsulates his season is obviously that pick 6 against BYU. I have to be specific because he had several, but the pick 6 against BYU, I think Oklahoma loses that game if that play doesn't happen. I was there.
Point.
You're not wrong.
I was there. I was right on the sideline. BYU was right in win territory. I mean, they were right on the cusp of having it. He doesn't make that play. And do you guys remember, or did you hear the story on the play, on how all of that went down?
Yeah, he was supposed to blitz, and he pulled back and saw something.
Yes,
like, nah.
Yeah, he said they got mixed up on things and saw that guy was coming wide open, and he said he just ran to cover, and the ball pretty much just landed right in his hands. It was one of those things, and
he had the lean forward. That's why he got behind the receiver, because he had the lean forward for his blitz.
Exactly.
And he couldn't. So he just kind of it looked like he floated out. He was just in no man's land. He didn't know what he was doing, and then the ball's coming at him, and he ran like he stole something, which I would have too, because it was dirty.
the quarterback for BYU, it feels like he thought that Bowman was going to blitz too.
Yes.
It looks like he read the play.
Because he
He's
went
like, oh, no,
right
I know
there.
this defense was going to come. And
Yep.
as soon as he let it go, I was like,
No.
Rewind.
Yeah, exactly. No, man, I mean, look, I thought the fact that Billy Bowman wasn't a Thorpe Award finalist, like, what are we doing? This award's from Oklahoma. Like,
Bro.
it was just weird to me. I don't understand. But again, that's a guy. Name recognition is so big on things like that. He's a first teamer next year. I think this is a guy that's going to be. He'll be one of those guys that makes it up on the wall for Oklahoma.
Yeah.
The leadership, the guys that he's got around him in that room. I mean, that safety room looks like it hasn't in Oklahoma in years. And Bowman's best guy in that room. And here's the thing: is I know Danny Stutzman's the guy that's literally grabbing people and lining them up and throwing them where they need to be. But Bowman's just as important when it comes to having all that stuff set up the right way. And I think he really showed out this year and really reached his potential. Guy's special, man. OU getting him back that's so big. That's such a big boost for that team.
huge for what we're trying to do going into next season. All right, special teams. Special teams MVP. I'm going to get it to Elzinga. That man was punting his butt off when we need to go ahead and make him punt. I'm just going to keep it simple. BC, who'd you have?
I actually went Peyton Bowen here.
Yeah.
He
Son
had
of a bitch.
Hey, look, guys, when he was healthy before the ankle injury and him dealing with all that stuff, the dude was just a difference maker. Like, I mean, 2 block punts. He's going to be special, guys. If he's not already, he's going to be special. I don't really have to go into it any further than that. That guy, whenever he steps into a role bigger than he's in right now, it's going to be huge. And yeah, Elzinga needs his flowers. That man got a rocket for a leg. I don't know why Josh Plaster was out there. No offense to the guy, but I mean, Elzinga got it. So
I'll offend him. Plaster, you lost your Aster, aka your job, and Elzinga never gave it back. Goodness gracious. But no, I put Elzinga, but I was going to do my whole, I was going to go with Peyton Bowen. But now, didn't one of the transfers came in, and he's got 4 blocked kicks, in the season. And so now they're going to have a little battle royale and just start blocking kicks every time they get a chance.
Yeah, Willard. Yeah, Willard has 4 of them. And so, that's a timing thing, especially at his size. And him coming in, he's like 260, like 260 something. That's pretty good for at his size to be able to get in there. Peyton Bowen is just so good at just hawking the ball defensively, tackling. He's just really good at placing himself in the right spot. And those 2 blocks. Good point. That's actually he probably should have won that from me too. I was just thinking just punting and kicking. And I wasn't really thinking because it's been a while since he had been dealing with that ankle injury. We haven't got to see him do it again. Mm-hmm. But yeah, 100%. I agree with that. All right. Offensive most improved. Somebody asked this question in here earlier when we were talking about Drake. Mine was Nick Anderson. Nick walked in there as a redshirt freshman, led the nation in yards per catch. And looked good doing it. Like, he was Nick 6 at one point, right? About half of his catches were touchdowns. And if we could have found a way to just keep feeding him like that, he's going to do more. But I think that improvement and the coaching ability of Emmett Jones, man, I think that wide receiver room is going to be just dumb next year. Just dumb. So excited about that. I gave it to Nick 6 on that one. Coop, we'll go to you.
Yeah, Nick 6. I mean, he was, again, coming into this year, you had Jaden Gibson, Nick Anderson. It's show me state time. Like, you just got to show me because this is ridiculous. So, yeah, you got to go with Nick 6 because he came out and, like you said, I mean, at one point it was like 8 touchdowns and like 14 catches or something silly. Mm-hmm. And, I think that he's still learning the position. So shout out to Emma Jones because he's pretty good at his job.
So I was going Nick Anderson too for a bit, but I actually flipped over to Drake Stoops. And we've already talked about him for a bit, so I'll keep this part simple. Stat line: 80 receptions, 914 yards, 7 touchdowns. That is Drake Stoops' combined stats from the 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022 seasons. 80 catches, 914 yards, 7 touchdowns. In 23, he had 84 catches, 962 yards, and 10 touchdowns. So he outperformed his entire 5-year career in one season. That's tough. I don't care who you are. That's tough. He balled out. The other guy that I thought about for a bit, and this was kind of a different spin on the most improved, Gavin Sawchuk from week 1 to Gavin Sawchuk bowl game.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow. Huge. The argument could be made that there may not have been a better running back over the last 5 games in the country than Gavin Sawchuk.
That's a fair point.
He was over 100 yards every game. He played really well, and there's not really a question who the lead back is. And going into next season, and in the SMU game, we didn't know when nobody had any idea. So, he needs his flowers too. But Drake Stoops, he's a stud, man.
That's a good point. I love that you brought up all his numbers up into this season and how he just outdid them combined. It's
crazy.
Hell of a season, man.
Hell of a season. And even with the Sawchuk piece, the end of the year, he finished the year with 5 straight 100-yard games. That room was so beat up. Yep. Coming into the season, we thought that was our strongest room, right? Then the wide receiver room basically took over and said, no, we're number one. We're gonna take over, and they were the best part of this team. And the unfortunate part with the running backs was, like I said, they weren't healthy most of the year and still trying to get themselves back into confidence in like the hamstring and the foot. Those injuries, now that they're looking healthy, I bet you Barnes he'll have a year off that foot to really let it recover from that surgery he had. Sawchuk could get that hammy going. Megwa got a run, and that told me that he's probably going to start seeing some carries. He's probably going to be a 10-carry a game guy. Hell, make it you 100 yards at those 10 carries, which I'm not going to complain. But, after what he did to his knee, made you wonder. But, yeah, that was big. So, excited about that. All right, defensive most improved. So, I struggled with this one because the one I wanted to give it to is Kendall Dobie, but Kendall was new. He's more of a newcomer. He's more of a portal MVP candidate than he is actually a defensive MVP improved because he wasn't here last year. So if I'm going to improve, got to give it to Gentry Williams. That dude dang near shut down a side of the field. And the best part about it is Gentry got his interceptions this past season because teams did not want to throw the ball to Woody Washington, right? Like some fans are jumping here like, oh, Woody's not that good. Obviously, he is if teams decide they want to test a young dude and not go after Woody, because they could have went after Woody all season, but they didn't. They decided that they wanted to go after Gentry because they didn't know him. They didn't know what he had to offer and all of that. And then the dude gets out there and gets 3 interceptions. Now, the big thing with him was he was messing his shoulder up, which he's probably going to get that cleaned up here in the offseason, which is a good thing. But dealing with that shoulder, he was in and out. But when he was playing, no, he's your field dude. And that's a hard position to have to be able to cover that much space.
That's the big side.
He was terrorizing quarterbacks. They were getting nervous. They was getting rid of the ball as quick as possible, not only from our rush, but they were trying to get Gentry off base as much as possible. And the dude finished the season, like I said, with 3 interceptions. And him making Quinn, when Quinn double clutched and he read his eyes, immediately cut across and got that pick against Texas. I was like, yep. That dude's going to be a monster. I already knew it. He went to Booker T in Tulsa. I'm from there. I went to high school there. People there have told me dude's going to be legit. Yeah, he's going to definitely be one. So I'd say most improved defensively was really hard. Got to give it to Gentry. BC, who's your defensive most improved player?
So I guess I'm breaking the rules here because this guy was a transfer, but it was it was a very unique situation. Jacob Lacey. That's who I pick. Guys, the fact that he had pulmonary embolisms in his lungs.
You don't joke.
Think about that. The guy had pulmonary embolisms in his lungs and didn't know if he was going to play football ever again. He didn't just play. Per PFF, he led the defensive line in snaps. He played 385 snaps at defensive tackle. So, look, I can't even begin to explain how incredible that is. He missed fall camp. Like, guy wasn't able to do summer workouts. He was fighting for his life. I mean, this is something you're not, your livelihood's going to be completely changed. The stat line, look, you can't really grade defensive tackles off of a stat line. Individual, especially in a Brent Venables defense, their job is to eat up blocks. That's what they do. I mean, that's why Danny Stutzman has the seasons that he's had. But he had 14 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, a sack, 3 hits, or excuse me, apologize, wrong person. 17 tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss, a sack, a hit, 3 quarterback hurries. He played really, really well. He obviously led the team in snaps there at the position for Todd Bates, which is huge. Another guy that needs his flowers here, and I did think about taking this one, was Jordan Kelly. That's a guy that's going to get lost in the fold as guys that Oklahoma's going to miss, that fans aren't really going to think of. But for him to stick around and do what he did and turn into the player that he did for Oklahoma, it's just incredible. I mean, Todd Bates was able to kind of revive his career, and he played really well here to finish the year. But Jacob Lacey's who I went with. I mean, this is an incredible story.
That's a really good story. I actually am so glad that you shared that, because a lot of people didn't know that. I like that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Ethan Downs.
Ooh,
I thought.
Good one.
I thought when Ethan Downs was put on the preseason All-American list, I compared it, and I thought it was more ridiculous than Iguebu being on the previous years. It was essentially like, I hear things about this guy could do, let's put him there. And, I was on record like saying he was probably not going to be, I was like, I bet he doesn't start games. Ethan Downs, statistically, didn't have a phenomenal year, but he was so disruptive. And when it was tackling, from a sack standpoint, but like his within 2 yards to 2 yard loss in that 4 yard area, right, on both sides of the line of scrimmage, Ethan Downs, that was his land, and you didn't come into his land. And when he made plays, they were super impactful. And, again, he is just one of those guys who, at the beginning of the year, I thought, well, just leave him on the sideline, please, for the love of God. And then at the end of the year, I'd see something going on and be like, hey, this is a big play. Why is Ethan Downs not in there? Just because he may not sack the quarterback, but you know what's going to happen? He's going to push him right into somebody else, or he's going to make them get the ball out, and somebody else is going to pick the ball off. So, he is just one of those he's just had a disruptive season. And, I'd say the Ethan Downs apology bandwagon starts here.
I appreciate the fact that you decided that you were going to go ahead, and apologize like that. Not too many people can handle doing that, and that's actually a really good thing, because when I looked at him, when you mentioned Downs, that's a good one, because he was actually 13th in, if you take the Oklahoma, Texas, and then all the SEC schools on PFF, he was 13th in hurries at 22. Like, he was getting pressure. He had his 6 sacks, 3 hits, and then 22 hurries. 31 total pressures. That's pretty good. If you're in the top 15 of the SEC, the new SEC.
Yeah.
He did some damage. So that actually is a really good choice.
The other thing about him is, like, that's a perfect, he's the epitome of a Brent Venables guy. Like, he does everything by the book. I mean, he's
Skalski Jr.
Yes, I mean, he's a man of the word. He's all about it. He's all about everything, and he does everything 100%. I mean, he's a great. I mean, one of my favorite guys to interview. He's just fantastic.
Yep. He was number 15 for the SEC, including Oklahoma and Texas, per PFF in just total pressures at 35. Like I said, 35 total. He's 31 total. He was 15th.
And as Hank says it, he owned the halftime of the Sugar Bowl.
Yes, he did.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. He made a lot of them mad. All the messages he was getting.
He hurt a lot of folks.
Did you guys see the video going around of the lady up in the stand, just going after it?
I mean, it was long. Like she was not. He's such a nice person because I would have outed her in a heartbeat, and I would have put that DM out there and be like, "Hey, here you go, guys. Have fun."
And then I said it. It's not even. I mean, that wasn't like a 21-year-old, co-ed traveling. That was like a 50-year-old lady's hands, or like an upper 40s, like whoever that was. So that is somebody's mama, maybe on the team. But she was. It was terrific.
That well played there, Ethan Hornsdowns. That's going to be his name going forward. All right, Portal MVP. And then we'll wrap it up with coaches, which one of the coaches get your award. Portal. So this is where I struggle. I had two. I had to go co on this one. I don't like going co typically. I only did it because I didn't do an O&D. I just did it as one award. I got to give it to Andrew Anthony and Kendall Dobie.
Mm-hmm.
And technically, Dobie's not a Portal guy either because he's a JUCO guy. So, but I had to lump him in there. I found a way. Kendall Dobie was so good at the cheetah and at the nickel and at the corner. When you needed him, dude, so reliable at that. Dobie was when I saw him come in at JUCO, I was like, okay, I think he's going to be special. And he exceeded my expectations. And I had high expectations of him coming in. The only thing that concerned me was his height, 5'10-ish or whatnot. And when we talked to Reggie Pearson here on the show, Reggie was basically saying, he's like, look, if Kendall gets out of his own head, dude's going to be elite. And it looked like he got out of his own head because he was out there being elite. He's going to be dangerous next season. Oh, I'm so excited. They just got him just moving around the field, play him at free safety, throw him at corner, put him at nickel, put him at cheetah, put him at middle linebacker. I don't care. Find ways to get that man on the field.
And he's going to be on the field more too because Harrington's coming back. So...
yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I mean, they're expecting him to come back.
Expecting that medical waiver to come through.
Yeah,
we're gonna look at that. It's just saying,
it's gonna be good.
Next to him, Andrew Anthony was my offensive guy. If I had to go into, we'll do two positions. Andrew Anthony, unfortunately, tears his ACL against Texas in that game where he was about to go off. We saw a little dip in our offensive production because he really did take up a lot of attention. But when he came in from Michigan, I had a whole bunch of y'all, and I'm saying y'all in these comments because I love y'all, but I'm calling some of y'all out. Y'all in my comments talking about this dude like, well, Michigan didn't even want him. Why did we get him? I'm just like, it's okay. Probably because he wasn't in the depth chart, moving up like we need. You're not ready. Just watch what he's able to do. He's got the blow the top off speed that we want, and I bet you he's going to be. There's something about him that Emmett Jones and them said, yeah, we need to go for him. And Emmett was hired the same day, and I think Emmett actually was recruiting him before he even officially, quote unquote, took the job. Well, he took the job, but he wasn't officially on the job. Then he walks in and becomes wide receiver 1, and Nick Anderson had a great year. Right? That is crazy to me that he walked in and said, nah, I'm going to take the number 1 spot. Even with Drake Stoops having a great, I'm going to be our number 1 receiver. And if he did not get hurt, he easily has 100 catches this season. Easily. And I think DG's numbers get even more inflated just because of the attention that Andrew required out there. So I had to do that. Andrew Anthony, Kendall Dobie. BC, who you got? Portal guy.
I definitely cheated on this one. I picked 3 guys. This was
okay.
Yeah. It was tough for me to pick these, but 2 of them is more. Really, they're all 3 just about their impact. The first one is an offensive guy, is Austin Stogner. Like getting him back. Look, I know that there were times when the blocking in situations was bad. Some of the insert stuff, blocking on the perimeter was bad during the middle of the year, but he progressed as a blocker. But the reason why he is one of my MVPs is because if you hadn't had him at tight end, that position doesn't see the field. Like, I mean, you don't have, and you can't play effective offense without a tight end in the passing scheme in the Big 12. Like, you just can't. You need the safeties to have some sort of responsibility for those guys. And that's, so it is what it is. The other two guys are defensive guys. DeJoun Terry,
Yeah.
dude, just a dude. Hey, and again, this is one of those positions in the defensive interior that's so hard to know how well a guy is playing or what kind of effect he's having unless you look around at what Oklahoma does as a team. And whenever DeJoun Terry comes in, the defense from last year to this year. So last season, Oklahoma allowed 187.5 rushing yards per game. That was 104th nationally. Okay. This year, they allowed 138.6. That's 43rd nationally. It's 61 spots better. The improvement was huge. And so DeJoun Terry was one of their best run defenders. Huge that he's coming back next year. Can't say enough about him. And then the other guy was Rondell Bothroyd. Somebody opposite of Ethan Downs. No, he didn't have the sack numbers, but his pressures, according to Oklahoma now, you guys all know PFF versus coaches, things are going to look different. With official QB hurries, he led the team with 8. Mm-hmm. He was around the ball. One play in particular that sticks out, I believe it was the Texas game, where they had a reverse in a goal line situation set up, and Bothroyd sees it the whole way, and it changes the feel of that entire drive. It just stymied what Texas was doing. Bothroyd was a veteran presence, and he kind of allowed. Our Mason Thomas wasn't who we hoped he would be this season because of injury for most of the year. Bothroyd gave you a good guy on that side of the ball. So those are my 3. I know I cheated, but
that's okay.
It was worth it in my opinion.
I agree. It was 100% worth it. Because great points, and I like giving those players their flowers in that capacity. Coop, who you riding with?
Yeah, I'm gonna throw my no, I did not. I'm gonna throw my my coach in here too because I got to bounce. I got an early flight in the morning. But I'm going with Andrell. You nailed it. I mean, literally when the guy went down, you thought you saw the emergence of so many other guys at that point, and Farouk still hadn't come out yet. So, we thought, surely he will soon. But, I mean, the offense just, had this. It was on the struggle bus shortly after that. So, got to say that. And he's going to, be ready for fall. And hopefully he is, ready late spring. These ACLs are completely different nowadays. And then, you stole it on Dolby. I mean, if you guys remember Brandon Shelby was one of those guys who anytime that there was we had scored to go up and we really, really needed something on the defensive side to, just get the defense off the field and get the offense back on. It'd be this corner blitz by Dolby and he'd be right there. Or there'd be a bang, bang play to where, the defensive back stopped somebody 3 yards short of the first down. What looked like to be just a wide open first down, give me. It was always him. And Kendall Dolby was that guy this year. I mean, anytime that you saw his name, it was a big play. It wasn't him tackling somebody 37 yards downfield and you're like, oh, somebody freaking tackled him, thank God. Not like those. It was, he had a corner blitz and a sack at one point that's when the Shelby thing kind of hit. So, bro, he's so good. Now it's, it's good that you said DeJoun Terry because I was going to say, I expected more sack numbers, but then I got to think about the BV defensive line. But I think the thing that he brought was that SEC mentality and that dog mentality on the defensive line. And I think that gave them a boost. Like it felt like the rest of the defensive line got a bully that was coming on their side, and they were like, all right, yeah. So it kind of like increased the mean streak of them, because for a while there I was like, hold on a second, we just took a mediocre edge guy, thickened him up, and put him as a starting defensive tackle because nobody else could take the seat from him. And no disrespect to La'alu, but I thought we got to have somebody show out. So DeJoun Terry's great because he just developed a bulldog. And I got to say, the coach, without the injuries, I would have said Valai because that unit was crazy. I've given Emmett his props already. And so I'll just go with Brandon Hall because the safeties were a strength on our defense this year, and it was a stout, thick room. When you're bouncing Reggie Pearson, or you're like, it's whatever. That's crazy because Reggie Pearson has been on some really, really good defenses, and he's a really, really good player. But Hall was just that's. I mean, when Daya McCullough is like, hey, I want to bounce, he's a good player. He was going to be somebody. He didn't go to Montana State. I mean, he went to Louisville. So I said it multiple times on the show is, you can't just be a guy and show up and want to play the secondary on OU anymore. But I got to bounce, fellas. Love you both.
Good to see you,
Love everybody in the chats.
And
we'll catch back up.
All right, we'll talk soon, man. Thank you. All right, so me and Ryan wrap this bad boy up with coaches. My coach, real quick, man. So Coop made a good point. We'd give flowers, but I got to keep doing it. I'm giving it to Emmett Jones, just because, man. Right. It's hard. It's hard to argue what he did with that room. Like walking into the season, I've said this so many times. We thought the wide receiver room was our weakest room. Like we were concerned. We said, okay, it's gonna be Jalil Farouk. We don't know about these young dudes. Everybody's got questions. What they gonna look like? I mean, Drake is, he catch passes over the middle. He cool. Drake's up there leading stats or top 5 in stats for the Big 12, right? Nick's out here getting touched, leading the nation in, like I said, receptions, yards per reception. Like we got all of this stuff. We're like, oh, and then Jaden Gibson was holding on to the ball. Our biggest concerns we truly had in that room, no concerns anymore. And he's elite in the recruiting side. He's number 25, at least should be, right? Or unless he decides he wants to grab a couple more that he can have athletes and put them on both sides of the ball and share them. Because I know right now there's a fight for Jacoby Johnson between him, Brandon Hall, and Jay Valai. They all kind of, got to get in the ring and see who wins this fight so we can take them for the week or whatnot. So, no, it's just he did everything. He exceeded every expectation when we hired him. People questioned who this dude is. We're bringing him from Texas Tech. Why would we want a dude that worked at Kansas? Like, what's he gonna really be? And then now everybody's like, yeah, man, Emmett Jones needs to be offensive coordinator. I need to do that so that he'll leave. We need to do whatever we gotta do to keep him here. Crazy how things turn out, right?
Yeah.
BC. I know you're probably going the same direction.
Right? I am, yeah. It's Emmett Jones. I mean, as you just said, that was, I believe I wrote on OUInsider, that was OU's biggest question mark coming in was wide receiver. Everybody was worried about it. Didn't know who was going to catch passes. Now he's got the room he does. But here's the thing. This is what shows you what kind of man they got. I mean, they got a dude at wide receiver coach. He goes in 2024, he gets Zion Kearney, he gets Ivan Carrion, and then he gets Zion Raggins. On top of all of that, he goes into the transfer portal head-to-head against Texas, who's about to lose their top 2 wide receivers to the draft, and says, nah, Deion Burks, you want to come to Norman. You don't want to go to Austin. Yeah, that's cool and everything, but did you see what Drake Stoops just did at the slot position? Like, I mean, if you want, let me help you out. And he lands him. The guy is just, he's incredible. He's incredible on the field. Those guys really, they block their tails off. The wide receiver room just continues to be physical. And that's something that he is his he's pounded in their heads, and it's showing on the recruiting trail as well. 2025's he's got some guys that are going to be difference makers in that class too. So yeah, he's been incredible. I did see something in the comments. Nobody brought up Walter Rouse as a transfer portal MVP. That's another good option. So
No.
That dude was fantastic for OU too. So
Yeah. Rouse was. I mean, going between Rouse and Tyler Guyton, I mean, it's really, you truly could go up in the air
Yep.
between the two. Heck, you could even throw Guyton up there at O-line as the offensive MVP or most improved, because dude's now a first rounder. And I think Walter Rouse is definitely going to get drafted. He's probably a late day 2, day 3 guy.
Yep.
Beatonbow deserves even some credit for what he's done with those guys, even as a coach. I mean, as you go, coach, Beatonbow, you can even give him props with that, because
Yep.
he may see 4 dudes get drafted. Like, I would have not thought that going into the season. Now, I knew Guyton was definitely, after what he did with Jared Verse, I was like, okay, he's definitely going to.
Yeah.
But there's some rumbles of Tower being a third day guy. There was rumbles of Rain being a third day guy, and a lot of y'all be hating on dude. So it's just amazing to see how things had a season wrapped up. May not be the way we wanted, but man, there's so many bright spots in preparation for next season. Like what do you do? Like how do you complain about, just what the foundation that's been laid? You're straight right. Walter Rouse is another one that, especially the two-handed block, right?
That dude,
it's funny because I'm thinking about that, because I was watching the end of that 49ers game, and Trent Williams did that exact thing to, I forgot who they played against just now, but he, on the right, he had 2 dudes
Rams.
just like this. Yeah, on the Rams. He had 2 dudes just like this, with one hand and the other, and he's blocking. I'm just like,
2 NFL.
I expect that out of Trent, though, because
that dude's different.
He's different.
They call him Silverback. He call him Silverback for a reason. That man is different. He is built different. Oh man,
purely different. And he was sitting there, literally standing on business the entire time. So, but Rouse deserves props for I agree.
You said something about the foundation that's been laid. And this was, I don't know. I won't keep you long on this one, but
no, please.
A thought occurred, and this was on my way back from San Antonio. I was, quiet, wasn't listening to a whole lot of music, and just like to, think and process what I just watched. And the differing philosophies in what the previous regime had at Oklahoma versus what Brent Venables has now could not have been more polar opposites than they are. And I'm not just talking about scheme. Obviously you've got an offensive and a defensive coach. We're talking about accountability as far as practice and stuff goes. Lincoln Riley was almost so much of a player's coach that it was a detriment. That's well documented. You have Brent Venables, also a player's coach, but ain't nobody gonna question him about being at practice on time. Like there's not a question. It's different. So like the philosophies, yes, are one thing, but the culture, the winning culture, the Oklahoma culture, it's back where it needs to be. You have people staying for the right reasons. You're building a roster of guys that are talented, but they want to be Oklahoma Sooners. And I think that people don't realize just how difficult that is to instill in 2 years. You're changing everything about your program, and he's done that. So, just hats off to BV as well. That guy getting them back to 10-3. No, it wasn't what everybody wanted, but if Oklahoma's 11-2, nobody's having the questions that they're having about next year. So, it was a big year for Oklahoma. You got to be happy with them at 10-3 after what happened in the wake of Lincoln Riley leaving. So,
right, and your point too, even continuing this foundation piece, how we've had such turnover, right? I mean, there's
Yeah.
probably about 90. I'd say if you want to give it a number, 80% of all statistics are made up. So I'm gonna make up a statistic, but I'd say we're in the 90% range, right? Of turnover from players from his regime back. I mean,
I got the number for you right here.
Oh, what's the exact number?
There were 13 players, scholarship and preferred walk-on, that were available for this Alamo Bowl versus the Alamo Bowl whenever he took over. So there were 13 players out of 125 that were on the roster.
So that's like 92%. I was right there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Scholarship players, it was only 10, and of those scholarship players, only 8 were contributors. So, like, I mean, it's a new team. It's a totally new team.
Within 2 years, guys, he has basically turned over just about every player this is why I push back on people that complain about NIL and transfer portal in some capacities, because without the portal, you're not going to be able to refresh your roster like this with guys that fit better in what you're trying to do. And like you mentioned, BC, the culture change, the attitude change, you don't get that all the time. You don't get everybody to buy in that quickly. Really,
Right.
That's really your biggest problem, is getting players to buy in when the new coach comes in. And Venables was able to go out there, find the guys that match what we were trying to do, and boom, we have to do it. So that's over 90% turnover on contributors on this roster. And that's, like you said, scholarship and PW. That's crazy that he was able to change that many dudes. But also, again, we take so many recruits for that particular reason. And that's why when it comes to the portal, just adds more fuel to the video I'm going to drop tomorrow about that, is we purposely pick specific players to not alienate the recruits we're bringing in. We know when we need veteran presence as the Band-Aid for the position, but our goal ain't to replace all the dudes that we're bringing in as recruits, because that's your foundation. That's what your big boys do. That's what your Georgias do, your Bamas. The players that they're shedding the weight of players that aren't going to contribute anymore. The guys that aren't going to be around. And every once in a while, they're like, okay, injury issues and all of that. We probably need to go get another dude that could probably potentially start or actually rotate.
Right.
So they find that. And if you don't get the recruits you fully want, you go find an additional portal dude to help add to that. So yeah, that's how you build a team. If you want to build a sustainable winner, like it hasn't been proven yet that you can win only out the portal. Lane Kiffin is pushing that. He's pushing that envelope, boy. Lane is pushing it hard right now. A&M was buying all their recruits and couldn't find success, which is still wild to me, but that's a coaching problem, not really a player problem. But we've got to see. Ole Miss is going to teach us. Colorado's going to teach us. Can you build a sustainable winner just through the portal? Washington looks like, I mean, they've got a lot of contributors from the portal, but for the most part, Kalen DeBoer had them dudes at least in there for a year for a full season before they're starting to see the success. Michigan, they're built in the house.
Yep.
They're built in house with 30 recruits every class, and then they just shed based upon what they need. So we'll find out what everything looks like long term. So as we wrap this bad boy up, BC, thank you for being here for as long as you have. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Always a great listen. Don't worry about talking long, because you always provide some great content. Now, National Championship, who you got? Who you think gonna win this game?
I've picked against Washington the entire way, so why quit now? I mean, like, I've doubted them the entire way. I didn't think they'd beat Oregon once. Didn't think they'd beat them twice. Obviously, they did. I'm gonna go Michigan. I think Michigan's the better overall football team. I think that passing defense provides a different challenge for Michael Penix. Now, it don't matter how good the passing defense is if Michael Penix plays the way he did against Texas, because that man finding keyholes in the door, like he was different. Yeah, I'm gonna go Michigan. I think it's lower scoring than what Washington wants. And that was my other on the Heisman talk. They picked the Heisman too early, man. They picked the Heisman too early. It should happen after the bowl season. Michael Penix should be your Heisman Trophy winner. But I digress.
That's fair. That's a fair assessment. I only disagree because to me, Jay and Daniels had a Caleb Williams type season. Like
Fair.
literally the only reason why LSU was any good was because of him.
Fair.
Like you take him off the team. Even with Penix, you can do the same thing, but I think that Daniels was a little bit more critical. And that one game when Penix was sick was at Arizona State and they just struggled. I was like, that's probably the game that tipped it over for me for Daniels because Daniels
Yeah.
had it. I mean, he ran for
Right.
over 1,000 yards. He threw for 3. But I agree. We
Nuts.
probably should go with the Heisman right after the national championship, just in case you have a dude that decides to go in the playoffs and cook everybody's meat. Like he just cook them up because he's good. And so my pick though, Michigan. I said this right when all the scandals started. Michigan's going to win a national championship, ain't they? And then they're going to vacate all their wins. So this whole season was a waste. This is exactly what's going to happen. All of it is lining up perfectly for us to look at this and be like, man.
And Harbaugh's going to be an NFL coach 36 hours after.
Exactly. Somebody's going to be looking back like, what? Like, ain't nobody even here. Can't even bask in it no more. Michigan's under investigation. So they're going to go ahead and pay Sharon more and say, look, we'll give you 5 years to hang out and just continue to win games. We're not going to be able to go to bowl games, but, Sharon, you do this. They're going to find a way to keep him around. Harbaugh's going to take all the blame. He's going to go coach the Chargers or the Raiders or the Falcons, whichever one Lincoln Riley doesn't take. So at that point, I'm just going to be like, man, this is just dumb. Michigan is who I think is going to win it. And it's nothing against Washington. Like you, I initially started picking against Washington in some, especially against Oregon. I figured Oregon would figure it out, but Penix is just that good. He just kept showing out and he was like, oh, okay, never mind. I guess I was wrong here. Well, I think against Texas, I picked Washington, and I told my Texas guys that when I picked them, I was like, look, I bet against Washington all season, and everything that tells the way that they play, y'all secondary ain't ready for them. They got 3 number 1 wide receivers on that team. 3 number 1s. Yep. 3 of them. Like, how do you have 3?
Yeah,
like, they look like the Dolphins right now.
Yeah.
Right? We talk about the Dolphins' speed and their wide receivers and how they're playing. Like, man, these wide receivers that's literally who they look like. They got 3 dudes that could be the number 1 wide receiver on just about any team in the country. Like, one of them probably could take our number 1 spot here. They're that good. And Penix is out there with the experience of 40 years in college football. He don't even care who's rushing after him. He feels comfortable at all times. I was just like, yeah, he's a top 3 draft pick in the NFL. Like, you got to give it to him because he understands pressure. That, to me, sold me on Penix those last 3 games or whatnot. The Oregon, the game before Oregon, I forgot. Oh, Washington State game, the Apple Cup, and then going against Oregon a second time. Even the first Oregon game, I was just like, yeah, Penix is legit. And then now Texas, I'm just like, yeah, I was an idiot. I should have never bet against y'all this season. I'm so glad they beat Texas twice, though. 2 years in a row. Just chef's kiss or whatnot. So, all right. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Put a bow on it. Let everybody get home. Bryan, thank you again. Let the people know where to find you and all your great content that you be putting out there.
I'm over at Heartland College Sports. You can find us just heartlandcollegesports.com. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff. And then obviously OUInsider.com over there contributing and going to have lots of good stuff for you guys over there. Got some off-season stuff with incoming freshmen and transfer portal guys in the coming weeks and months. So be checking that stuff out. Appreciate you having me on, Jay. It's been good. So,
as usual, man, I'm going to try to bring you on as often as possible when I'm not taking you away from your family. But also on top of that, check out when BC drops his videos, like looking at the players actually running through plays. No, it's gold. It's best out there in the business. I appreciate that. That helps me with even determining if I think a dude's actually as good as I would say, or where they need to line up. That helps. And so I know I've heard that Alley is in town, but no one's officially said if he's when the official announcement. I anticipate Monday. We'll wait and see. But I did see somebody on social media point out that Chavis had a U-Haul at his house. And so people were a little worried about him leaving or whatnot. And somebody else was like, no, I think that's probably Alley moving in to stay with him while he figures out where he's going to live. I'm just like, oh, okay. that calms down a lot of the waters out there. But no, the Alley breakdown, when he breaks it down right after the hire, go check it out. You'll see how the defenses run. And it'll definitely make you feel like you're looking in the mirror with Brent Venables. So thank y'all for pulling up as usual. Y'all are dope. Hop in the comments. Let us know how you feel about stuff. We'll probably, chat with y'all as we go through the week. Please like, subscribe, rate, review, give us 5 stars. You don't think we deserve it? Let's go ahead and give us 5 anyway. And then with that, we'll chop it up with all of you with, I don't know, probably in like the next day or two. Peace.